And welcome to Imagination Fun Time, starring Brandon Devine. Hey, that's me. I'm Brandon Devine. How are you all today? What is today? Today is Monday, May 31st, 2021. And for those of you who do not know, because I just remembered, a few minutes ago, today is Memorial Day. So, good shout out to all the veterans who have sadly passed away in the line of service. That always sucks. My grandfather, may he rest in peace. He was a World War II veteran. My stepfather, he is a Navy veteran. Yeah. Good shit, man. Good shit. So I hope you're all doing good. I'm doing good. It's the end of May. It's getting, warmer and warmer out. Hopefully going to be a good summer. It's been raining a lot around here. It's going to be definitely a wet summer for sure. Hope everyone's doing good. I'm happy because the mask mandate was lifted in the town where my job is, so I get to not wear a mask at work anymore, which is fucking amazing. I'm so happy about that. Oh, I can wear my glasses again at work. I can finally see. I literally worked for a whole year without my glasses at work, and it sucked. It's so, for those of you who don't wear glasses, and it sucks, man. It really does suck. All right. So, let's get into it. Let us read the news on IMDb. All right, let me see. What do we got here? What do we got, people? I don't know. What do we got? Born today. There's a lot of good people born today. Oh, big shout out to Clint Eastwood. He is 91 years old. That is awesome. Okay. All right, people. So the news as of May 31st, 2021 at 3:14 p.m. The news on IMDb is box office, A Quiet Place Part 2 smashes pandemic era records with 57 million debut. Holy shit, that's great. God damn. Man, I am excited to see Quiet Place Part 2 because for those of you who do not know, that a lot of that movie was shot in and around Buffalo, New York, my hometown, and I am so jealous of all my friends that got to be a part of that movie and work on it in all sorts of capacities, background casting, production, extras, all sorts of stuff, catering probably, who knows. But a lot of good hometown pride in that film right there. So that's awesome because that's going to be a big one worldwide. That's going to be a big movie. All right, what else we got? Joe Lara, star of Tarzan: The Epic Adventures, dies in a plane crash. That is sad. I've never heard of this man. I'm sure I've heard of Tarzan: The Epic Adventure at some point, maybe, but that's always sad. That sucks. I'm sorry he died. Rest in peace, man. Gavin McLeod, Love Boat captain, dies at 90. God damn, that's damn. It's a sad day in the news. Love Boat. I mean, who doesn't love the Love Boat? I know nothing about the Love Boat, but I'm sure the Love Boat is awesome. Tatino Films launches Full Circle Lab in France. I'm sure I butchered that name with my terrible pronunciation, but that's awesome. That sounds cool. And finally, will audiences return to movie theaters? Yes, but it's now a cultural war issue. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm not even going to touch that one. That sounds like that's way above my pay grade. I am not touching that one. Fuck that. It is not a cultural issue. People, please, everybody go to the movies. The movies are for all of us. Please, for the love of God, just go back to the movies. Please save the movie theaters. Okay, so as you're all tuning into this episode, I am excited to talk about this movie because this movie actually really means a lot to me. It's a movie that is part of my official top 10 movie list of all time. And I also have the framed poster for this movie here in my room. So this episode, I'm going to talk about the amazing classic 1996 film Trainspotting. Trainspotting was released on February 23rd, 1996. At that point, I was just about 3 years old. So I was like 2.5 years old, 2 and 3/4 year old at that point. The screenplay was written by John Hodge, based on the book written by Irving Welsh. The movie was produced by Andrew McDonald and directed by Danny Boyle. The main cast of the movie is Ewan McGregor as Renton, Ewan Bremer as Spud, Kelly MacDonald as Diane, Johnny Lee Miller as Sick Boy, Robert Carlyle as Bigby, and Kevin McKidd as Tommy. Okay, so the basic plot of this movie is a movie centered around a bunch of heroin addicts and basic kind of almost lowlifes in and around Edinburgh, Scotland. The book is based in the late 1980s. This movie obviously was filmed in the mid-90s, but not too much between those two eras is really different, so it's basically all around the same time. A group of friends, several of which are heroin addicts, they live an almost bohemian lifestyle as they move carelessly through life. All the characters are in their, early, mid to late 20s, early 30s, stuff like that. Renton, the main protagonist of the movie, wants to clean up and get out of this life, but keeps running into issues like sleeping with an underage girl at a club, relapsing continuously on heroin, and friends who just bring him down, and parents that have basically just given up on him. Well, not given up on him, as if you're watching the movie, they actually are they save him. But parents that are just like, what the fuck? Why is my son a heroin addict? And through a series of intense struggles, both internal and external, the only way out for Mark Renton, sorry about that, the only way out for Renton from this horrible life is literally by screwing over his mates. Yeah. Oh my God, this movie, there's just so much about this movie that is just fucking insane. And the main reason this movie is one of my favorite movies of all time is because it's an amazing, awesome story that ends with a completely, shitty ending. Not shitty as in, what the fuck, that was a terrible ending. Shitty as in, it's a great ending, but it's not a feel-good ending. No one really wins at the end, because at the end of the movie, Mark ends up stealing $16,000 from his friends. He ends up, technically really only $12,000 because he gives 4 of it to Spud. But he steals, thousands and thousands of dollars from his friends and just runs off with it. And that's the end of the movie. And he literally admits at the end of the movie that he is a bad person. But I love it because in life, there are so many real stories in life that just end that way. The good guy doesn't win, the bad guy wins, and that's really life. Not everything is going to work out in the most feel-good way. And also, this movie it's labeled as a black comedy or a comedy drama. I look at it as a black comedy. This movie is truly fucking hilarious. I mean, literally in the first 5 minutes, he dives into shit. Renton literally dives into a toilet of shit full of nasty shit and piss to retrieve some opium suppositories. Major motion picture, and just right away, just diving into shit. Let's see, what else? Oh, yeah. One of the most fucked up parts of the movie, where there's also, no real morally just ending to that part of the story, is Diane, who Renton ends up meeting at a club. turns out to, and ends up going home, and they do the deed and blah blah blah, and wake up the next morning. Turns out, she's not, above an 18-year-old girl, or above that age. Turns out, no, she's like fucking 15 and is a dumb high school girl that snuck into the club because she wanted to be grown. And of course, Mark didn't know that, because most people in the club aren't going to assume that, oh, this girl might be underage, or this guy might be underage, or this person in general just might be underage. Because underage people who sneak into clubs are fucking morons. And then throughout the movie, Mark wants to end it. When Mark finds out that fact, he's like, fuck this, I'm out, fuck you, you suck. But she blackmails him into still, like, seeing her. Which, that sucks. That doesn't really work out for him. Doesn't go to jail, but still, that's bullshit, man. Let's see, what else? Oh, yeah. It's definitely not funny because it ends tragically, but just throughout the movie, through a simple act of just kind of being a dick to your friend and stealing a porno film of Tommy and his girlfriend having sex, inadvertently that starts Tommy down a horrible path of depression, heroin addiction, HIV infection, and then eventually he's dead. All because, as you see in the movie, in an early scene, Mark ends up, just being a dick to his friend and stealing what is definitely a private video and just watching it casually with Sick Boy. And Tommy's girlfriend and him find out that the tape is missing. Tommy doesn't know what the hell happened to it, but his girlfriend doesn't understand that and just breaks up with him. And then Tommy ends up becoming super, super depressed, and then ends up going to Mark for heroin, becomes a heroin addict, becomes a pretty deep heroin addict, ends up developing HIV through sharing a bunch of needles with people throughout, the lifestyle of the heroin addict. And like a lot of people back in the 80s and 90s, he catches AIDS. That sucks. And then later in the movie, he ends up dying. It wasn't from AIDS. It was, in the movie, it says from something called toxoplasmosis, which also is disgusting. But, that sucks. It's definitely not like a funny part of the movie. It's definitely like one of the more dramatic, serious parts of the movie. But I like it because it's a great part of the story, because it has no morally just ending. This kid, Tommy, who was, started the movie, was like probably the most upstanding member of the group. It's not a heroin addict, not an asshole. He ends up getting screwed over the most because he ends up dead, which really sucks in life. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, there's a scene where Mark goes through cold turkey heroin withdrawal. That is a pretty intense scene to watch. Especially since, I should actually talk about this earlier scene first, where, God, the image in the movie, there is an infant baby who is the daughter of this girl that's a member of their group of friends, who's also a heroin addict, and as it turns out later, is actually also Sick Boy's daughter. And through neglect of, being a junkie mother and, being a junkie father and not paying attention to their child, the child ends up dead through neglect and, whatever symptoms come from that, starvation, dehydration, all that horrible stuff. And it's this really graphic scene in the movie because they show this dead baby. They don't hold back from it. They don't hide it at all. They show full clear, very horrific looking image of this toddler, probably like a year or so old, lying dead in its crib. And that's pretty hard. That's a horrible scene. No one wants to see that. That's really horrible to show. But it also, again, very realistic of, these are the consequences of of drug addiction, of really, really hard, horrible drug addiction. A drug takes over your life so much that you end up neglecting and end up killing your child. And what's even more horrible is the mother's next reaction and the other character's next reaction after, all seeing this dead baby just right there is, what do we do now? Well, obviously, we need to shoot up. We need to, drugs to make us feel better. And, that scene is just really hard to watch and not, just want to gag and throw up. To me, I think, that scene has definitely happened somewhere in the world throughout the history of junkies and drug abuse. It's fucking horrible, man. Fucking horrible. I mean, I smoke a lot of weed. But I've been really thankful that I've been able to avoid, hard drugs. I've never done coke and any of that stuff. And I really do feel for people that fall into that addiction. And I really hope people who have that addiction can get out of it. All right, I'm going to stop being serious. I'm getting back. This is not a super serious, shouldn't be a super serious podcast. This is about films, about movies. Of course. All right, where was I, folks? Where was I? So through that, after that image, after that scene, a few scenes later in the movie, Mark is going through withdrawal. And how he's going through withdrawal is his parents, after, he is sent to the ER from ODing on heroin, his parents pick him up from the hospital, literally just take him to his childhood bedroom, put him in his bed, lock him in the room, and literally hold him prisoner. Just lock him in there, coming in to feed him, give him water a few times a day, and literally lock him in there and make him go cold turkey on that heroin. And it ends up working, but the whole scene is pretty horrific. It's very intense. I think it's probably 5 minutes long, maybe a little less. And Mark just sees all these horrible images of, things from, his current life, his past life. Well, mainly just stuff that you see in the movie, like Tommy now. He sees Tommy, now deeply immersed and horrid looking because of drug addiction. He sees Diane, the girl who's blackmailing him. And then, the worst of all, he sees the dead baby crawling across his fucking ceiling. And then, falling on him. And all these horrible illusions and images and shit that's all in his head. It's all just in his head. And it's all because, his body is fighting off the withdrawal. Showing, just how deep into the addiction he was. And he's able to get through it, and he gets through it, he lives. He actually goes and gets an AIDS test, and he's negative. That's pretty thankful. Sadly, Tommy's not negative. And yeah, for those of you, if you've never seen that scene, please watch. You gotta watch this whole movie to really understand what I'm talking about. It's fucking nuts. There are definitely a lot more other amazing, great parts of this movie, but that's just, a bunch that I found really interesting that I always liked. Let's see. All right, now I'm going to get into the production behind the scenes of this movie. Okay, so this movie is based on a novel by Irving Welsh called Trainspotting. And the novel itself is a lot different from the movie. The novel has a lot more stories about the characters. It's a bunch of characters in the book that aren't in the movie. And that's because, if you were going to fully adapt a book, it would best to do it as a mini series or a TV series, because you just don't have time in a movie. Irving Welsh also actually plays the drug dealer Mikey Forrester in the movie, for those of you who don't know. So if you watch the movie, the guy who plays Mikey Forrester, he is the one who wrote the book. Ewan McGregor, who plays Mark Renton, the main protagonist, anti-hero of the movie, he lost 28 pounds to give the realistic look of a skinny heroin addict, which is pretty intense. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of weight to lose for a movie, and he definitely, that's definitely up there on the list of actors who are dedicated enough to a role to drop weight like that. And for those of you who never dropped weight, I was able to drop a lot of weight this year, like between 50 and 60 pounds. It is not easy. It is a lot of work, and it sucks ass. All right, let's see what else. Just going by my list here. Let's see. Due to the low budget of the film, most of the scenes were done in only one take to preserve film. What was the budget on this movie? Was probably only a few $1,000,000, which to some people that sounds like a lot of money, but when it comes to making a feature-length studio motion picture, that is not a lot of money. That is such little money. Let's see what. According to Wikipedia, it says the budget was 1.5 million pounds. Damn, yeah, that is not a lot of money at all. Although set in Edinburgh, most of the film was shot in Glasgow, Scotland. The iconic opening scene, and the Choose Life scene was shot on historic Princes Street in Edinburgh. Let's see, the park in the scene where Sick Boy and Renton used a BB gun to shoot the dog and are talking about, I think, probably James Bond and stuff like that. Oh no, when they're talking about Sick Boy's theory on life. That park is called Roken Glen Park, which was a filming location in Danny Boyle's previous film called Shallow Grave, which also starred Ewan McGregor. The great outdoors scene took place at the Corrier, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Corrier Railway Station in Lochaber, Highlands, Scotland. And honestly, I would love to travel to that place one day because that fucking place looks so beautiful. I was lucky enough to get to go to Scotland once when I was 13, and I gotta tell you, people, it is so beyond beautiful. The whole countryside is so green and lush. It literally just looks like one big golf course. And I know that sounds really stereotypical because it's Scotland, but that's the god honest truth. I think that might be a reason that golf is from Scotland, because it just all looks like a golf course. Don't take that. What do you want? What do you want? I'm sorry. I'm just really starting to think about that trip. That was a great trip, man. Let's see. The mountain in the scene that they start walking towards is called Liam Villiam. What? I'm not pronouncing that right, but if you want to look it up, you do you. All right, the pub brawl scene where Bigby tosses the mug over the side, and ends up, smashing on some poor girl's head, and Bigby ends up starting this giant bar brawl. That is at a pub called the Crosslands Pub in Glasgow, which is still open to this day. I looked up pictures of it, and the interior it looks pretty much exactly the same as in the movie. So that's, this is like 25 years later, so that's pretty cool. The drug deal scene at the end of the movie, the ending shot of Mark walking across one of the bridges in London, and the hotel and all that stuff they stay at, that was all filmed in London. And then a lot of the rest of the movie most of the movie, though, was shot on sets built inside this abandoned cigarette factory in Glasgow. Now, this movie, for those of you who don't know, this is actually a really, really successful British film, outside of the UK. And a lot of that is basically all of that is because of the success of the marketing of this movie. So this movie was developed and filmed between like 94 and 95, 1994 and 1995. And that one of the big worldwide hit movies at that time was my hero, Quentin Tarantino's second movie, Pulp Fiction. And it's really odd I'm saying that because for those of you who do not have the power to see through your computer or phone or wherever you're listening this to and see into my room where I'm recording this, my framed poster of Pulp Fiction is literally probably like 5 inches away from my face right now at my desk. So anyway, Pulp Fiction was really massive hit, and so naturally a lot of studios afterwards were like, okay, how can we copy that awesome, cool Tarantino style? And this is one of those first movies to answer that question. I read somewhere that this was marketed as the British Pulp Fiction, which in a lot of ways I can see that. The poster was a really big part of the marketing campaign. So I love having this poster framed in my room, and I get to look at it every day. Because for those of you who do not know, it is a really awesome poster. And the main poster of the movie shows 5 of the characters, Bigby, Diane, Sick Boy, Spud, and Renton. All just in different poses, all just looking straight forward. And all it does is just give you the names of the characters and those image and the title of the movie. That's basically the entire poster. And that's pretty good marketing because it kind of, if you look at it and you have, you question it, you're thinking like, okay, what are these characters about? Based on these images. Definitely good marketing right there. Good advertising right there. Another big reason this was able to sell in America is because the soundtrack to this movie is so fucking dope. So many amazing artists are featured on the soundtrack of this movie. One of the big things at this time in pop culture in the mid-90s was the Britpop phase, which I love because Oasis is one of my all-time favorite bands. And just looking it up right now, the genres featured within the soundtrack, it says Britpop, techno, dance, alternative rock, and electronica. Along with, 80s dance hit and classic rock, and it has so many amazing, great artists. Let's see. Iggy Pop, Brian Eno, Primal Scream, Sleeper, New Order, Iggy Pop again, Blur, Lou Reed, Pulp, Bedrock featuring KYO, Elastica, Left Field, Underworld, Damien Albarn. Underworld's song in this movie, Born Slippy Knucks, I love that song. If you've never heard that song, please look it up. Great, amazing song, definitely to get high to. So that any movie that has a really, really good soundtrack, as people in the modern age know with the Marvel movies like Guardians of the Galaxy and other Tarantino movies, if you have a really good soundtrack, the movie's going to sell really well. If you use just a lot of good music. Let's see, what else we got going on about this? Another marketing thing that they did is for the American release of the movie, the first 20 minutes of the movie was redubbed to kind of tone down the heavy Scottish accents in the movie to make it easier for an American audience to understand. And from doing research, I found out they've done that before with other British UK films that get wide releases in America, which actually does make sense. Their accents are a lot of accents. If they're really heavy, It's pretty hard to understand in a movie. So that's pretty cool to do that. Let's see what else. Miramax at the time was, I think, the distributor of the movie. Was it? God, I should know this. I'm sorry, people. I should know this. What is wrong with me? Let's see. Yes, Miramax in America was the company that distributed the film here in America, and some people who's they're definitely not welcome in the film industry anymore, because of some really horrible shit that they've done. But back then they were, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about the Weinsteins, Harvey. Back then, he was a big seller in this movie, and it ended up getting an Oscar nomination. Miramax back in the day sold so many amazing movies, and it sucks that such an amazing company that has released so many amazing movies, its reputation has to get tarnished because of one horrible dickhead human being. But yeah, the movie actually got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, which it rightfully should, because the screenplay for this movie is so fucking amazing. All right, what is the theme of this movie? I actually just Googled, what is the theme of Trainspotting, and the answer I got, which actually makes sense, is friendship and how relationships with people can affect our actions in life, which, yeah, that's pretty much true. That is definitely true. The people around us can definitely affect, what we do in our lives, unless we have the balls to just do what we want. Sorry, I'm not trying to sound too preachy right now. Let's see. But yeah, this whole movie is basically, the whole movie centered around a group of friends, It's a pretty weird group of friends. Mark, through backstories, Mark and Simon have been basically, Mark and Sick Boy have been basically best friends throughout their entire lives. Spud has always been part of that group, and so is Tommy. Bigby, they never really say in the movie, or maybe they do and I just don't realize it, but Bigby clearly isn't the same age as the guys, as the rest of the group. He's definitely a bit older, probably in the movie in his early 30s, and the rest of the group is in their early to mid 20s. But even though Bigby, bullies and, intimidates everybody into kind of being the leader of the group, it's really Renton that's the core center of the group in a way. And yeah, just through thick and thin, they're still friends. For those of you who don't know, there's also a really awesome sequel to this movie, T2 Trainspotting. And that movie goes deeper into, the friendships and backstories of the characters. And really, if you watch both these movies back to back, it makes sense that the theme of the movie is friendship, because through thick, thin, and devious betrayal, you could still be friends with a person. I'm still friends with people that have definitely been dickheads and done shithead things throughout their life. And people are still friends with me, even though I've done some dickhead, shithead things. But I guess it's all part of the human condition, maybe. God, why am I getting, so fucking, psychological, philosophy? I don't know what the right word is. What do you want, people? I'm just a nerd trying to describe a movie to you in a podcast, and you're the ones who are actually listening. If you've gotten this far in, what am I at? 34 minutes? God damn. 34 minutes. All right, so that's really all I have to talk about in this episode about Trainspotting. Please go watch this movie. You can rent it on Amazon. I don't think it's on any streaming services right now, but if you have never seen this movie, highly, highly always recommend this movie to anybody. Maybe not kids. Maybe once you're in middle school, you can really understand it. Definitely in high school, you'll be able to understand it. And yeah, that's really it. I'm I really hope I'm getting better at this. I hope you were able to follow my insane ramblings. I'm trying to get better at this, people. It's all still new to me. Now this is my fourth episode. It's pretty good dedication, I think. And I think eventually at some point I'm gonna try and set up a way, if anybody gives a crap, to try and contact me about this podcast. And if people ever want to contact me, you can always follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is bman 71693. That's bman71693 on Instagram. I'm sure at some point I might set up an account for this podcast if it gets successful enough. And that's really about it. I will see you on the next episode of Imagination Fun Time. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.